plus qu'une exposition, c'est une célébration des mots et des idées. Radio Algérie International, votre guide tout au long de cette aventure littéraire. Lire pour triompher. Le Salon international du livre 2024.
With Radio Algeria International, you will not miss a single major political or economic event. Radio Algeria International, our voice in the world.
This is the English service of Radio Algeria International. It's time for the news.
The Minister of Foreign Affairs and National Community Abroad, Ahmed Attaf, has hailed the Sochi conclusions, notably those related to the decolonization process in Africa and its definitive elimination. Mr. Attaf added that the world needs a new order where every country enjoys security, stability, and prosperity. And at least 33 Palestinians, including 13 children, were killed in airstrikes carried out today by the Israeli occupation against the northern part of the Gaza Strip. And those were the major developments. Now, the full news edition. Good afternoon. The President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, has received messages from several heads of state and governments extending their congratulations to the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, and to the Algerian people on the occasion of the 70th anniversary of the outbreak of the Glorious Liberation Revolution. Mariam Bershi has the details.
The former Lebanese Prime Minister, Mr. Saad Hariri, extended his wishes to the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, and to the Algerian people, hailing the ties of brotherhood and solidarity uniting the two countries and reaffirming his determination to continue to work together to deepen and promote bilateral relations in line with the aspirations of the two brotherly peoples. The President of the Socialist Republic of Vietnam, Mr. Luong Chang, also congratulated President Tebboune on behalf of his country and people, wishing Algeria, under the leadership of the President of the Republic, more achievements in the process of national edification. Meanwhile, President Tebboune received greetings from the President of the Republic of Tajikistan, Mr. Emomali Rahmon, who expressed his country's will to strengthen relations of friendship and cooperation in all fields. The Prime Minister of the Brotherly State of Kuwait, Sheikh Ahmed Abdullah Al Ahmed Al Sabah, also sent messages of congratulations to the President of the Republic and held a close friendly relations between the two countries and the two brotherly peoples, underlining his will to strengthen them and reiterating to the President of the Republic his wishes for more progress and prosperity in Algeria. The Crown Prince of the sister state of Kuwait, Sabah Khalid Al Hamad Al Mubarak Al Sabah, for his part extended wishes to the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, wishing Algeria further progress and prosperity, expressing his will to develop and promote the good brotherly relations between the two countries and the two brotherly peoples.
The Chief of Staff of the People's National Army, Army General Said Shangriha, has paid a working and inspection visit to the Center of Engineering and Development of Mechanic and Electronics of the Algerian Army in the 1st Military Region. In a speech delivered on the occasion of his visit and after listening to a presentation expounding the role and mission of the center, General Said Shangriha emphasized the importance granted to Algerian military industry, which is modern, efficient, and adapted to the technological advances prevailing in the world and the requirements of defending the homeland. The Minister of Foreign Affairs and National Community Abroad, Ahmed Attaf, has said that the world needs a new order where every country enjoys security, stability, and prosperity. In a statement during his participation in the Ministerial Conference of the Africa-Russia Partnership Forum in Sochi, Mr. Attaf said Africa and Russia share a special relationship of partnership and friendship.
وهذه الشراكة التي نأمل اليوم في الارتقاء بها.
We want to boost partnership to a very high level in line with our commitments and hopes to build a system of international relations where every country enjoys its legal right in terms of security, stability, and prosperity. We have the basic historical foundations that make our meetings so special. These are not meetings between partners only, but meetings between friends tied with constant trust and mutual respect, and a common aspiration to a new world order that is more stable and balanced, and more responsive and caring for the rights of all peoples, and more incentive to cooperation and integration instead of clashes and conflicts.
He reiterated Algeria's will and then recalled the priorities of relations between Russia and Africa.
I
would like to commend particularly the priorities which were set and included in the outcomes of our today's meeting. First, completing the decolonization process in Africa and definitively eradicating it, as there is no place for colonization, both old and modern, in the world and Africa of today. Second, strengthening cooperation in the fight against terrorism and the inherent transnational crime. Third, activating African solutions to African problems, as the solutions imposed from abroad have not proven their efficiency in resolving conflicts. 4. Ending the marginalization imposed on our continent in the UN Security Council and the various international economic, financial, and monetary organizations, because this marginalization is the biggest reason behind our continent's absence in international and even internal decision-making. Fifth and finally, consolidating economic development and channeling our efforts towards speeding up the implementation of the 2030 UN Agenda.
Mr. Attaf then reiterated Algeria's will to enhance the Africa-Russia economic exchange and investment.
With the same deal of commitment, Algeria supports the objectives set in order to enhance the volume of trade exchanges between Africa and Russia and increase the amount of Russian investments in African countries. Despite all the challenges and threats, Africa continues to demonstrate to the entire world that it is a committed and reliable partner that constantly seeks to build balanced relations that contribute to achieving sustainable development goals for the benefit of all and without any distinction, exclusion, or discrimination.
The Minister of Foreign Affairs and National Community Abroad commended the priorities formulated in the conclusions of the Ministerial Conference on Africa-Russia Partnership, in particular those relating to the completion of the colonization process in Africa and the rehabilitation of the continent within the Security Council. He also hailed the projects submitted for assessment and approval at this meeting, given their comprehensive nature and precision, particularly in terms of objectives to be achieved, in addition to their adaptation to the aspirations of the African continent at the current stage. Mr. Attaf hailed in particular the conclusions related to the colonization process in Africa and its definitive elimination, and to the strengthening of cooperation to fight against terrorism and transnational crimes. He also recalled the need to promote African solutions to African problems, explaining that solutions dictated from outside have never succeeded in resolving the conflict and crises facing the African countries and peoples. And still on the sidelines of his participation in the Africa-Russia conference, Mr. Attaf held bilateral talks with many of his African counterparts as part of his participation in the ministerial conference. Mr. Attaf met with his counterparts from Mauritania, Ethiopia, Rwanda, Burkina Faso and Benin. The meetings tackled bilateral cooperation in addition to several issues and questions on the African Union agenda. To the Middle East now, at least 33 Palestinians, including 13 children, were killed in airstrikes carried out today by the Israeli occupation forces against the northern part of the Gaza Strip. Over 30 others were wounded in Israeli attacks that targeted Jabalia and Gaza city center. Over 45,550 Palestinians, mainly civilians, had been killed and displaced 1.9 million others since the Israeli occupation launched its attacks on the territory. A report issued by the UN High Commission for Human Rights affirmed that 70% of the victims are women and children. This came as health sources were quoted by media as saying that several cases of malnutrition and famine had been recorded in the northern areas of Gaza. They deplored the lack of food and medical supplies on account of restrictions imposed by the Israeli occupying authorities on Gaza's northern regions. Still with Palestine, the Director General of the World Health Organization described as extremely alarming the World Food Security experts' warnings about risks of famine in the region. In a report issued by the Infection Prevention and Control, APC, stressed that 1.8 million people were facing high level of acute food insecurity and malnutrition across the Gaza Strip. This followed a previous IPC report issued last month and based on expertise provided by NGOs and UN agencies, including the World Food Programme, assured that over 340,000 people would be confronted to terrifying levels of famine between November and April 2025, representing 16% of Gaza's population. And Gaza Media Office has announced that the number of Palestinian journalists killed has risen to 184 since the start of the Zionist genocidal aggression against the Gaza Strip on October 7, 2023. The office called on the international community and media organizations to intervene to deter the occupation and prosecute it in international courts for its ongoing crimes and to pressure it to end its ongoing genocide and killings of Palestinian journalists. A member of the Palestinian Journalists Union, Mohammed Yassin, had the following to say.
We are in
the face of a major series of the Israeli violations of the international law, principles and charter that insist on the necessity of protecting journalists in fighting areas and that highlight the freedom of the press. But the Israeli occupying forces do not take into account and ignore all protective laws and principles for journalists. We stress the imperative of putting an end to the Israelis' non-accountability for the crimes carried out against journalists.
It's worth noting that the Zionist occupation has been continuing its devastating war in the Gaza Strip since October 7, 2023, killing almost 45,000 people and injuring more than 100,000. And Palestinian health authorities said the war has displaced almost the entire population of the territory amid a permanent blockade that has led to severe shortages of food, drinking water and medicine. At least 40 Lebanese citizens have been killed and dozens more injured following a series of Israeli airstrikes and artillery bombardments across various regions of Lebanon. The strikes caused extensive damage to buildings, infrastructure, and public facilities, leaving entire neighborhoods in ruins, according to local and media reports. The deadliest attacks occurred in the town of Almat, located in the Mount Lebanon Governorate, where at least 20 people were killed in a horrific Israeli attack targeting a residential compound. Another 17 deaths were reported in the southern town of Deir Qanun, Ras Al Ain, while 3 others were killed in the another coastal town as a result of indiscriminate Israeli attacks. 2 Mauritius now polling stations open today for the legislative elections, during which voters will be called upon to choose their members of parliament. Mariam Barshi has the details.
Polling station opened at 7 a.m. local time and will close at 6 p.m. local time. A total of 891 candidates are in the running. Of these, 62 will be elected deputies at the end of the ballot. 8 others will be appointed. There are 2 main blocs: the alliance led by 62-year-old Pravin Kumar Jugnauth Militant Socialist Movement and the Change Alliance led by 77-year-old Labour Party leader Navin Ramgoolam. Around 1 million voters are registered for these 12th legislative elections in the history of the Mauritian Parliamentary Republic, in which the leader of the alliance that wins the majority becomes Prime Minister and then appoints the President. The results are expected tomorrow.
You still listen to Radio Algeria International, and still in Africa. In Nigeria, gunmen have killed 15 people in attack on a village in the northwest of the country. The deputy governor of Kebbi State has said that the assault in Mira, 50 kilometers from Niger's border, was carried out by unknown gunmen. And Nigeria has been plagued by armed violence since the emergence in 2029 of the Boko Haram terrorist group. to Spain now. Huge numbers of people have protested in Valencia against authorities' handling of recent deadly floods, demanding the resignation of regional head Carlos Mason. Spanish outlets, including news agency EFE, cited a government body as saying that 130,000 people took to the streets yesterday to demonstrate. Let's note that more than 200 people died in the flooding, which was caused by torrential rain hitting Valencia and neighboring provinces in October. And back to the country now. Messages of condolences continue to pour to the family of late Algerian football player Rachid Makhloufi, who passed away on Friday. In the middle of the Algerian War on 13 April 1958, 10 of the most well-known Algerian professional footballers fled from France to go and play for the new Athlone football team. This team was created from the National Liberation Front. One of these 10 players was Rachid Makhloufi. Rachid abandoned the French team preparing for the World Cup finals in Sweden and instantly became an Algerian national symbol. By the summer, more and more France-based Algerians came to join the original 10 who fled, and Rachid and his teammates wanted to show the French people the serious war that was going on in Algeria. You're still listening to Radio Algeria International. That's it for our news bulletin. Now the headlines. The Minister of Foreign Affairs and National Community Abroad, Ahmed Attaf, has hailed the Sochi conclusions, notably those related to the decolonization process in Africa and its definitive elimination. Mr. Attaf said the world needs a new order where every country enjoys security, stability, and prosperity. And at least 33 Palestinians, including 13 children, were killed in airstrikes carried out today by the Israeli occupation against another part of the Gaza Strip. That's it for our English news bulletin. I invite you now to listen to the international event of the week.
The international event of the week.
A major event this week was the re-election of former U.S. President Donald Trump after his Republican Party secured a majority of votes in almost all states, including the swing states, where the Grand Old Party won a decisive victory. The former president took the lead over his Democrat rival Kamala Harris and captured more votes than the 270 Electoral College votes needed for his re-election. He also won the popular vote, leading his contender by nearly 5 to 6 million of votes, becoming the first Republican president to secure the popular vote since President George W. Bush 20 years ago. Asked if President Trump's major victory reveals that the majority of Americans adheres and supports his so-called Make America Great Again vision, our political analyst Hamoud Salhi had this to say.
At this point, it is too early to tell how American foreign policy will be carried out under the new elected President Donald Trump. We don't know how President-elect Trump will govern. Much depends on his vision of the world, his strategy, but also on the people he will be hiring to work for him. During the campaign, he made several statements, positions on current conflict, including in the Ukraine, when he said that he will end that conflict 24 hours. But those statements could be made for other reasons. When in power, things are different. He might find himself having to take into account several factors. For example, the European position on that front, the price that Ukraine will have to pay, and how much Putin, being now knowing how Trump act, will use as leverage to take other concession from Trump. So the situation is very, very difficult to say at this point. But we could draw some conclusion based what he has done in the first terms. We know, for example, in two areas, particularly in the area of trade, that he would most likely act on his proposal to increase tariffs if China and Europe, for that matter as well, would not pay up their shares. In this area, this contribute to a trade war because the other countries may not reciprocate, may not do what Trump wants to do. And we have seen in China that could escalate to a difficult situation. But a counter-argument could also be made in this regard, and this is why it's difficult to predict at this point. That increase in the tariff having in the past and will be happening will translate into higher prices for customers. This could be a bad timing because Trump, during his campaign, argued that he will lower prices. So this could put him in a very difficult position, and he has to choose between a trade war, increasing the tariff, and the impact that will have on the American customers. The other thing that we can be sure that he will continue to support Israel. He led the normalization with some Arab countries. He moved the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem, recognizing by fact Israel claimed sovereignty over Jerusalem, and he cut funding to UNRWA. Those positions will most likely continue. But again, that much also depend on the Palestinian and Lebanese resistance and the movement in solidarity for Palestine in the United States. So things are not clear at this point, and we have to guess whether President-elect Trump will continue do what he did before in the 4 years, meet his pledges that he made during the political campaign, and ignore the realities of what happened since he left power. Those factors are very, very important, and he might have to consider them and renege on some of his promises during the campaign.
The U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris acknowledged her party's defeat and called on her partisans and supporters to continue the fight for democracy. During a phone call, she congratulated her Republican rival and reiterated her support for a peaceful transfer of power. The defeated candidate had been criticized during her 100-day-long campaign for failing to address the concerns of the Americans about such issues as the purchasing power, inflation, migration, or security. Observers says that the candidate of the Democrat Party, often considered elitist, had failed to propose concrete solutions to the problems of the Americans, mainly the cost of living, causing notably the working class to shift towards Trump. Asked about the Democrat Party's shortcomings and failure to grasp the concerns of the Americans, our political analyst Hamoud Salhi had the following.
The timing could have been a strong contributing factor. Harris, that is, had less than 4 months to carry out a campaign from scratch. As evidenced by the results, she could not build a strong coalition to counter Trump's base and could not reach many Americans, at times even appearing out of touch. She spent so much time in the swing states and didn't do that well. So the fact, and that could be simply because she didn't have time to visit other states and also to visit her partners, her coalition supporters, quite often in the swing state. But there are deeper problems that the Democrats have to face. Their refusal, or the Biden and Harris refusal to take a stand against the Israel, the unconditional support they showed to the Jewish state, led Arab American Muslims and supporters voters, the youth in the Democratic Party to jump ship, either to stay home, not to vote for the Republican. And this proved to be to pose problems for the Democrats. And it also underlines a very, very important problem that the Democrats have to face. The Democrats currently are divided between the leadership elitist that wants to move to move to the center, and they believe that staying in the center will win them votes. But the base, the vast majority of them as youth and minorities, do not see it that way. They want the party to move to the left of the center, and as a result, they want the party to be advocating for issues that matter to the American, including homelessness, housing, health care. All of this, the Democrats, which was at one point a leader, now has not. So looking into how the leadership and the cohesiveness, the vision and the mission of the party is another area that the Democrats have failed to do. And obviously, the Republicans took advantage of that, and in particular, the President-elect Donald Trump.
President Trump has, during his campaign, vowed to meet the aspirations of the Americans and to fulfill the expectations for the building of a strong and powerful nation. He pledged to protect the U.S. economy by imposing new tariffs on imports, reorganizing the federal health agencies, and by introducing changes into the education system. He also pledged to carry out what he called the largest deportation of migrants in American history. Regarding the U.S. foreign policy, the re-elected president vowed to put an end to the conflicts in Ukraine, in Gaza and Lebanon, but failed to elaborate. During his campaign, he reiterated his strong support to the Israeli government, but never said how he intended to settle the long-standing Israeli-Palestinian issue. To the contrary, the Vice President Kamala Harris, who stressed that she will do her utmost to help the Palestinians fulfill their right to self-determination. Asked about whether President Trump's well-known positions on the international issues would rather fuel tensions in the world, our political analyst Hamoud Salhi commented the issue.
The polls show that the voters chose Trump because of several reasons, but one of them that appears to be the main issue, they felt that President-elect Donald Trump will bring economic relief quicker than Harris, and immediately. Trump, in this instance, connected with the public much better than his challenger, making a case that during his first term, the economy was far much better than what it is today under Biden. What is interesting is that although Trump exaggerated, I should say, in his assessment of the American economy during his term, the numbers that he gives a lot of times don't add up. But the public saw him overlook that, in part perhaps due to the fact that the Democrat challenger was unconvincing. And most Americans want a change. For example, 3 of 5 Americans who were asking in polls thought that Biden was doing a bad job, that he was performing poorly, and that despite the fact that on the macro level, the American economy is doing very well. Inflation is where it is expected, lower than it was before. Unemployment is at a record level, and prices are going down in a number of places. But despite that, the American people, or those that were asked, 3 of 4 of them thought the country was going in the wrong direction, and they wanted to change. Perhaps the timing was a factor, that Harris did not have time to make its case, but the economy was seen as one of the reasons that Trump won the elections. There are other factors, immigration, deportation, proposal that Trump was presenting, the failure of Harris to present her case and her position clearly on immigration also might have antagonized a lot of people. But Trump was successful in appealing to the vast majority of the voters, creating one of the strongest and broader coalition in American elections, and that could be due to his campaigning and connecting, as some have said, better than Harris during this campaign.